All right, welcome back to chapel, everyone. Does everybody have a seat at this point? You're still, here we go. Willie, there's room for you up in the balcony. Okay, at this point, if anybody comes in late, we need to head them up to the balcony. So I'd like to thank Ms. Coonan's advisory group for welcoming us after spring break back to the chapel. And I'd like to thank the residents of Clark Morgan for accepting the Chapel Assistants Chapel Challenge to offer the blessings before our meal times for a week, and they've done a nice job. So does anybody remember way back before spring break, our last chapel service? Do you remember where we were, what we did? What do you think, Colin?
We were outside.
We were outside, and what happened? Let's see, Patrick?
We lit the dragon on fire.
And we burned the dragon, exactly, that's right. Now that whole dragon burning was part of our hero's journey cycle that we've been explaining and living through together this whole year. Well, remember that, as we look back, the hero, that's you, that's also us collectively. The hero accepted that call to adventure, and along the way he met mentors who guided him, and friends, Cardigan brothers who helped him along the way. Along the way, too, we've discovered some gifts, perhaps that we didn't even know we had, or developed some, like Joke of the Day, that we did know we had. That's what part of this journey is about. And then for those of you in the balcony, and perhaps some of you in the choir section, you might not be able to see this, but along with that, this represents, yeah, sure, you can turn around and look. This is where we kind of ran into trials and temptations, tests and tryouts and troubles, all those cracks. So guys, what you would see if you were down here, remember the big egg we had that had the big cracks in it? That egg is all in pieces now, all up against the wall back there. And then it comes over to what Colin and Patrick said, which is the burning of the dragon. And right over here you can see that the dragon is up in flames. And if you recall, what that required of each of us is to think about some of our challenges, our personal things that we wanted to overcome. We wrote them on the dragon scales. And then we burned the dragon. But if that was the end of the hero's journey, we burned the dragon, why would you think that the silhouette is back here instead of up here to complete the cycle? Why would you think that would be the case? Well, go ahead, shout out. Anybody? Anyone? Yeah, David?
Because we're not finished.
Very good, Nathan. We are not finished. That's right. So Jalen and Andres, if you guys would please bring the visual aids up. Slaying the dragon required us to take an honest look at our weaknesses, and it required us to commit to improve them. So for me, mine was impatience. I think I shared that. When I watched that impatience blow up with the dragon, it's not like I suddenly became patient and calm. In a way, what that did for me is to symbolize my commitment to working on patience. So the dragon battle is really not the end. It is in some ways the very beginning. It's the beginning of a new story, because it's at this point that the real work of maturing begins. The point in the hero's journey that we're on now is called the revelation. Something has been revealed to us. So the hero emerges from that dragon battle, from the flames, with a more realistic, a more mature, a kind of sadder but wiser, a wisdom outlook than he had before. And he realizes that no matter how much, no matter how sincerely he desires to overcome the challenges he faces, he will not, or she will not, be able to do so alone. We recognize that our own efforts, though absolutely critical, essential, they're not always sufficient, not always enough to beat the biggest dragons that we face. So coming to realize that we are reliant upon others, on each other, maybe upon a power greater than ourselves, is a heroic act of humility. But it is necessary if we want to grow. So how do we plug in to a power greater than ourselves, especially if we don't even quite know what that is? Well, one way is through prayer. Prayer is a conversation with God, with the divine, with a higher power. It's a way to invite wisdom and energy that is far greater than our own. So with that introduction, I'd like us to join together now in prayer or in quiet reflection. Gracious God, God of grace, thank you for bringing us to this point in the school year together. As we look around our chapel, we realize that though we have come far already, we still have a long way to go. We give you thanks that through many dangers, toils, and snares we have already come. It is your grace that has brought us safe thus far, and we know that grace will lead us home. Amen. And now I'm very pleased and ask you to join me in welcoming today's speaker, who will be speaking on behalf of the mentors, our headmaster, Mr. McCusker.
Thank you, Dr. Perryman. I hope everyone will indulge me for just a moment or two of nostalgia, personal nostalgia, because as I think most of you know, Mrs. McCusker and I are in our sort of final chapter at Cardigan, and this chapel has meant so much to me over the years, I can't even tell you. The first time I entered this chapel was in 1978 when I was an 8th grader, so 13 years old. I think it was 38 years ago. And I think about all of the personal moments, not only in chapel together as a community, which have been important moments for me, but I think about the fact that my oldest son was baptized in this chapel, and that I had the great honor on 3 occasions of performing marriages in this chapel. That can be a faculty trivia question later. And then on the other side of that coin, we also had we had a funeral service here and several remembrances of that kind where we remembered and said goodbye to dear friends. So it's knowing that this is probably the last time I'll have a chance to speak in chapel, certainly this year, maybe forever. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm also grateful for the theme this year, the hero's journey. And Dr. Perryman's comments are certainly setting a nice stage for me to make my comments. I'm going to share something with all of you that has great personal significance to me. It's something that I've overcome, or at least I'm trying to overcome on a daily basis. It's my own personal dragon. And I'm going to use the framework of, my comments are going to use the framework of sharing this in terms of my experience, my strength, and my hope. So I hope this, for some of you, is helpful, and it will tie back to the power of prayer. On a personal basis, and some of you are aware of this, a personal dragon for me has been what was an overdependence on alcohol. I am, in fact, an alcoholic, and just saying those words years ago was a really hard thing for me to do. It was hard for me to admit that I was an alcoholic, and yet for years and years and years, I struggled with alcohol. Just so I don't gloss over that sort of important, significant dragon, I will share with all of you that I started using alcohol as a high school student. So I look at all of you, at the boys here, and I think not too much older than all of you right now. My drinking through high school accelerated through my college years, and I will admit that I thought that a lot of that during those times it was for reasons related to having fun with friends, so on and so forth. But even in college, I began to recognize some signs that my drinking was really unhealthy. I graduated from college. Mrs. McCusker and I got married. We began to have a family. And unlike most of my college friends, my drinking did not slow down. And I'll just share with all of you boys that this was a part of my life that brought a lot of pain, not only to myself, but to my children, to my wife, to my family. And I realized that I needed to do something about it. So the realization was something that happened over time, and yet I had to get to a point where I finally needed to take action. I realized that on my own strength and by my own efforts, I was not able to become sober and to sustain sobriety. This was really hard. And what I realized was that I needed help. I needed help in some form. I needed help from my family or from other people, so on and so forth. And it got me to the point where I finally asked for help. I admitted that on my own, left to my own devices, I could not maintain sobriety, and I sought help for that problem. And what I didn't realize is that in facing this dragon, which is obviously a big personal challenge for me, my life became infinitely better than it once was, and better than I could have ever imagined. And I want to share with all of you at least 4 unexpected benefits of addressing or trying to slay this dragon. So first, when I asked for help, and I realized that on my own I couldn't stop, when I asked for help, I was really surprised by everyone that I talked to, by their willingness to help me with this problem. If they weren't able to help me directly, my friends and family, they were essentially saying to me, we'll do whatever we can, Dave, to help you address this issue. The second thing I learned, and this was totally unexpected, was that I developed over time an appreciation for my relationship with a higher power. I'll use the word God, and what that was going to mean to me over time. Now keep in mind, I promise you I was not looking to develop a relationship with God through this process. I just wanted to get sober. I wanted to learn how to stop drinking. But over time and through the help of friends, I developed a spirituality and a relationship with God that for me is the foundation for everything else in my life. Third, I came to realize that the quality of humility, and a concept that I really didn't have great understanding of, but the quality of humility was actually much more of an asset than a liability. It was much more of a strength than a weakness. And when I think of humility, I've heard a great definition that has stayed with me, and the definition for humility that at least I like is not thinking less of yourself. So being humble or having humility doesn't mean that I'm going to criticize myself. So it's not thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less or less often, and where you're really directing your attention and your efforts in an outward way. And then fourth, and I think of this much in the way I think about Cardigan Mountain School, one of the benefits that we have in our community together is a certain degree of structure. What I learned was that I needed to develop certain daily practices which would allow me to stay focused and disciplined on slaying this particular dragon. And I will say that in this instance, and with the disease that I have, it's still with me. It's something that I have to address every single day. And if I don't, I start to feel a little bit funny. I've got to stay on it. There's a expression that I wrote down here, that my sobriety is but a daily reprieve. I get a daily break, which is contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. That's a lot of fancy words, but it basically means for me, I need to stay spiritually fit. And what I've learned from others, none of this stuff is what I learned on my own. Everything good in my life I've learned from other people. But what I've learned through others and over time is that I've come to rely on prayer as a daily practice. Now I brought up here because I'm mostly an undisciplined person who wants to have good structure and discipline in my life. A friend of mine said to me, you know what might be helpful, Dave, if you're interested in praying on a daily basis? Get yourself a little bath mat. Go to Bed Bath & Beyond and pick up a bath mat and put it by the side of your bed. And this will remind you that in the morning and at night, it might be a good idea to get down on your knees and say a little prayer. Now, I'll just say, that type of prayer, that sort of exercise was familiar to me because that was the tradition that I had in my family. We live in a community where there are many, many different faith traditions, and there are all kinds of different ways to pray. So I'm not telling you this is the way to do it by any stretch. I'm just sharing with you this is how I do it. And I actually really respect and admire and love learning about different faith traditions and different methods of prayer. But in my case, this prayer mat has been really helpful. When I When I get up in the morning, the first thing that happens is my feet hit this mat, and it reminds me to get on my knees and pray. And the same thing happens at the end of the day. I wanted to provide everyone with a little bit of a little device here. You've all got these prayer cards. A visual aid, I think, is an expression I heard. So everyone's got your prayer cards. I've been handing these out for, I think, 8 or 9 years now. And what I would say about prayer for me is that it's, to use the concept that we're thinking about this year, prayer for me is a tool or maybe a weapon to slay the dragon. And I've put 4 prayers on this little card that some of you might decide to hold on to. Little editorial comment here. Over the years, when alumni come back to Cardigan, or when I see alumni on the road, a lot of times the guys pull this out of their wallet and say, "Hey, Mr. McCusker, I still have my prayer card." I don't know how often they use it, but they hold on to it. And so think about that just as a possible resource for you. But on this little prayer card, I've put 4 of my favorite prayers, and most of them are in shortened form or in a form that has been adapted to I hate saying to meet my needs, but they've been adapted in a way that feels comfortable for me. So I've got a childhood prayer. This is the prayer that I used to say with my sisters at home when I was a little guy next to my bed. I've got a prayer that's adapted from the prayer of St. Francis. Now that's a terrific prayer. It's a much longer prayer than what you see here, but for me, this piece gets to the heart of things. Life's going to unfold according to God's plan. Let God's will be done, not mine, and what I hope to be is an instrument of peace and love. On the back, we've got the St. Paul's School prayer. St. Paul's School is where I went to high school. This is the official school prayer of St. Paul's, and we used to say it a lot. And the best part of this prayer for me is actually the second line that goes, that in all the joys of life, may I never forget to be kind. That for me is so darn powerful because there's nothing complicated about being kind to one another. Really, really powerful. And then the Serenity Prayer. Of the 4 prayers I'm providing, the Serenity Prayer is probably the one I have said most often in my life. In my early days and years of getting sober, I probably said the Serenity Prayer 15 to 20 times a day. It was a real resource for me all the time. So, boys, I hope you hold on to this prayer. For me, maintaining a prayerful life is really, really important. I also decided to give you a little quote here from a guy named Bill W. And it's a quote that I'm going to read. We'll read together. Or no, I'll read this one, and then I've got something a little bit later. Tried to hold fast to the truth that a full and thankful heart, so full and thankful, being thankful for what you have in your life. A full and thankful heart cannot entertain great conceits, like being conceited. You're not going to be thinking more about yourself. You're not going to entertain great conceits. I love the language, this next part. When brimming with gratitude, one's heartbeat must surely result in outgoing love, showing love to others, the finest emotion that we can ever know. So I wanted to share that with you. I think that's a really powerful concept. So in conclusion, guys, again, thinking that this may be the last time I get a chance to address our community in this special place, I want all of my colleagues, certainly, and all of you boys know that what I'd like to be more than anything else is a resource for all of you. I've shared something personal about my alcoholism and my daily battle with that dragon. I strongly believe that probably very few, if any of you, probably none of you boys are struggling with that particular disease at this time. There may be some adults in the community that have had some familiarity with this issue. But regardless of where you are right now, boys especially, but colleagues certainly as well, even after Mrs. McCusker and I depart Cardigan and the Point, I want you to always know that you've got a friend in me who will help you if you need help. You can find me. It's going to be easy to do. And I want you to know that even if we lose touch for years, going forward. If you struggle with this kind of thing or anything else, I certainly would love to be a resource for you. I could be a good friend. I would do whatever I could to support you. So take that to the bank with you guys. It's nice to know who your friends are. And again, don't hesitate to call on me for that kind of thing. So the last thing I'd like to do is let's look at the Serenity Prayer. And you don't need to be struggling with alcoholism or drug addiction or any of those kinds of personal issues. It could be anything in your life where you are hoping to find a little balance and to maybe help think things through a little bit. So let's say this one together, guys. All right, and I'll start us off, but please join me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. All right, well, boys, with this card, with that particular prayer, think of this as a resource for you if it's helpful. And please also know that I'm grateful for your letting me share a few words, comments with you, and thanks, too, for letting me be part of your lives, guys. Thank you.
It's great to see we're all warmed up, because next we're all going to sing. We asked Mr. McCusker a few weeks back to suggest a song that he thought that Cardigan boys ought to learn to sing in chapel during their time here, and he told us that Amazing Grace, written in the year 1779 by John Newton, would be a great choice. This is because you'll probably hear this song or sing this hymn many more times in your life on different occasions. It is considered by many people to be the greatest hymn ever written, and it has been recorded more often than any other hymn. But what is grace? I mean, I know a few people named Grace, but the concept of grace is found across many of the world's religions and philosophies. In Hebrew, the word chesed is used to mean something very close to grace. Chesed, or grace, is understood to be a spontaneous gift from God or from the divine, a loving gift or kindness that is generous, free, totally unexpected, and completely undeserved by the person that gets it, but we get it anyway. In the coming weeks, we'll learn more about the history of this famous hymn, but for now, let's start by singing it. And I've asked Dr. Perryman to, she's graciously agreed to join.
No, it's just, guys, I just have to admit to you, I am so nervous I'm about to throw up. I just needed to say that first. So that if I can't do this, that's why. I know I ask you guys to push yourself out of your comfort zone a lot, and this for me is it. So, good vibes. Okay. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
When I ask you to sing in a moment, we will use these words as a cue. For folks in the balcony who are far away, for folks in the choir section who are not facing this, there should be some cards in the holders if we have those. So first of all, just show your hands. Who has sung this song before? Many people. So let's try singing the first verse all together. And folks who know it a little bit better, sing a little bit more strongly. Folks who are just learning, try to do your best, and we'll all come together. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. Let's try the second verse. Through many dangers, toils, and snares. Some of these are unfamiliar words to us. Toil. What's a toil? Does anybody know what toil is? Say what's a toil? A trial, a trouble. How about a snare? I'm not talking about a drum. What is it?
A snare is a trap.
Snare is a trap. I've already come to His grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Can we try the second verse? Dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Okay. So the fourth verse is when we've been there 10,000 years. Human beings, we've barely been anywhere 10,000 years. We've moved all over the planet, but 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. I know it's a little bit older language, but it's I think it can really resonate. Let's try the fourth verse. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Thank you very much. We'll continue this in the coming weeks. To Cardigan, our favorite school, by nature's gifts benign, we raise in song our thankfulness for beauty which is thine. For winter snow, for afterglow, when day fades into dreams of goals toward which we all will strive, to keep thy faiths alive, to keep thy faith in us alive. Together we will strive, as Cardigan is mirrored in our crystal lake so clear. May we through life reflect thy truths and memories as dear, of summer's green, fall's colors bright, of glimmering stars at night. God gave us strength to carry on through storm or weather fair, the peace vouchsafed by living here for all the world to share.
Well, Cardigan family, I did not know that Mr. McCusker was going to have us all say the Serenity Prayer in unison, and I love that he did. Thank you. By way of benediction, on behalf of all of us, I'd like to end that, and I'll just say it for us. God grant us all the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.